Welcome, Max Splodge. Before we go down memory lane, I want to get one very important thing sorted out. What's this thing about Mongolia?
Mongolia? Well, it's on one of these boring days when I had nothing to do. I went into the big library in Stoke Newington where you looked up your surname and then you follow things backwards. Anyway, I got interested and started looking up my family tree. And then worked it back and back and back and back, and it turned out that I am actually related to Genghis Khan.
Right. And that started this real interest in Mongolia, and you're giving plugs for Radio Mongolia, and you think there are good things on the horizon next year for Mongolia.
For Mongolia, definitely. Well, Mongolians, they in the years of Genghis Khan, which was in the 13th century, they were the strongest fighting force this world has ever known, and they had 3/4 of Europe all sewn up. And I really believe they're going to do that again, because there's so many problems in the world at the moment, but the Mongolians never get involved, do they? Because they're lulling everyone into a false sense of security, like they did in the first place. And one day, when you're least expecting it, there'll be hordes of Mongols all coming down here, you know, down, with Camden High Street, chopping people's heads off, which they deserve, and Mongolia will come back to world supremacy.
Great, great. Have you told Pete Frame of Rock Family Trees this? Because it's going to be the first time that somebody, a rock star's line of ascension goes back to Genghis Khan, you know.
Have I told them?
Yeah, you know, Rock Family Trees, they do the kind of...
Oh, they do that, yeah. But
it's
best not to let too many people know, isn't it? You know, I'm not a grass. I'm not going to go, here, look, the Mongols are coming. Because, you know, a grass, I am not.
Right, Max, well, we got that one sorted. So, talking about the present now, before we go down memory lane, a couple of months back, you, with the band, the current lineup, you were at the legendary CBGBs in New York.
We was. It's the first time we'd actually been allowed into America. Been a few times we was meant to go, but things would go carpets up. But we went there to do the Holidays in the Sun Festival in New Jersey, and someone was silly enough to put on a whole tour for us, and we did play at CBGB's. I mean, I played there before, but with another band that I played bass with, the Angelic Upstarts,
right.
But that was shit. But so that didn't really fulfil the ambition. But to play there with my lot was brilliant.
Right. Have you also played drums with those people as well?
I played drums and bass. Yeah.
Right. And trombone.
And I didn't play trombone with the Upstarts.
Right.
No. 2 halves of coconut shells I did once in Thames Ditton.
Right. What was CBGB's like, you know, after all that you'd heard about it? It is a legendary place, isn't it? Did it live up to your expectations?
No.
Is it boring?
You expect me to remember? No, it was, of course it was an ambition fulfilled to play there. I mean, this was a stage that the Iggy Pop had played on that. It was great to play there. Problem we had that night was that, because we'd done a few shows before, I'd actually lost my voice.
Right.
So I'd done the best I could, but when that happens, which can happen to any singer, when that happens, the best thing you can do is just perform it, if you can't vocally. So we just done like a few songs and then all started beating each other up.
Great. And looking forward now, just in December, you're going out on a tour with the UK Subs and the Vibrators. Is that still happening?
We was meant to be doing the whole tour, but we're only actually doing a couple of the shows now because other people are busy with different projects. But we're doing a show in Coventry on the 21st of December and the Underworld, just up the road here, on the 22nd.
Right. And take us through the current lineup of your band, the one that's made The Artful Dodger and The
Artful Splodger.
I'm very sorry.
And also the album before that, because we've done 2 albums in 1 year. The first one was called I Don't Know.
Yeah.
Because when the record company phoned me up and said, what's the album called? I said, Men Behave in Mongi. And the chap said, you can't call it that. And I said, I can. And he said, well, you know, I've got to sell this album. So can you call it something else? So he phoned me up at the studio, which was Dave Goodman's studio down in South London, and said, what's the album's got? Who's the original producer of the Sex Pistols? Said, what you going to call the album then? And I said, I don't know. I'll speak to you later. And the next thing it was called I Don't Know. But anyway, the lineup for both of them is Matt Sargent, bass, Harry Monk, guitars. Who else is in it? I don't speak the others. Oh, Johnny Chunders, yeah, on guitar. And Long John Baldry's Steam Packet on backing vocals.
Long John Baldry's Steam Packet?
Mm.
Yeah,
not the Long John Baldry.
And that was 1966, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's not that Long John Baldry.
Oh, right.
No, this bloke's works for a pesticide company in Islington.
Right. So
it's coincidence that he's called Long John Baldry as well.
And it's not Rod Stewart, no?
No.
Because he was in Steam Packet, wasn't he?
Yeah. No, he's not there either.
Right, how
and neither's Dale Winton, he's not there. He was in the original Long John Baldry Steam Packet.
I didn't know that. Right.
He was?
Yeah. Right, and...
You calling me a liar? He was.
No, I didn't say anything. The Artful Splodger. The Artful Splodger. How would you you're still writing a lot of the songs for it, all the songs for it, are you?
Yeah.
You yourself, yeah. How have things changed with your original debut album, Splodgenessabounds, on DRAM?
Well, basically, it's just musically, it's the same sense of humour, but I suppose the main difference is I've got people in the band that are shit hot musicians, and basically that's the only difference.
Right, still the same kind of approach, writing about everyday things.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if people think, you know, punk songs have to be about, you know, making some great statement, I really believe my songs make a great statement in their own. I mean, for example, there's a song called My Sock's Gone Down Inside My Shoe. So that would mean nothing to some people, but basically where that come from, and it is an observation of working class life, because I was on a tube and I had all these problems. I had problems with my children, I had women problems, I had debt problems, and I'm sat there on the tube, and this Scottish guy has got on, and the tube is packed, and all of a sudden he's gone to his missus, oh no! And I thought, oh God, blimey, what's happened here? And he's turned around to her and said, look, my sock's gone down inside my shoe. And as though nothing else mattered in the world. So I thought about it, and I thought he had a very fair point there, because if you're walking down the road and you've got all these weights on your shoulders and all these problems, if your sock goes down inside your shoe, they all disappear till you sort it out, because it's a very uncomfortable experience.
Yeah. Right, going back to 1976, going back to Memory Lane, there was this Melody Maker band competition, at which I understand the very original lineup left quite an impression. Can you take us back to what happened at that institutional do?
Yeah, at the time, I was living in a big squat in Chislehurst in Kent, and most of the people who lived there are all in bands of all different, you know, varieties. And reading a Melody Maker one day, and it had the form to enter the Melody Maker Rock Folk Contest. So I said, why don't we enter that and just do it for the crack? So we done that, and we got the forms back. But I said, there's no point in doing it seriously. What we do, we'll all do the wrong instruments, because at the time I was a drummer. So we put everyone's name down, and we pulled something out. So the sax player would be the drummer, and the keyboard player would be the guitarist, and so on. And I got lead vocals. Oh, I'm not very good at that. Anyway, it hardly mattered. So we went there, and it was the first round, and it was I think it was the City of London College, somewhere down in the East End, and we just put 3 songs together. One was about pilchards, and one was about someone with a talking bum, and I can't even remember what the other one was. I think it was probably about Dale Winton and Long John Baldry's Steam Packet. Anyway, so we just went on stage, stark naked, with cardboard boxes on our heads, and because we didn't care, and then we walked off, and we was happy to go home. But you used to get marks out of 10, and you would get marks out of 10 for musical ability, which everyone gave us none. You get marks out of 10 for originality, where everyone gave us 10, and marks out of 10 for, I'm not sure what the other one was, originality, performance value, I suppose. And by fluke of chance, we won it. So then it went on to the next round, which was the marquee, and we done the same thing again, and we won that. And then it
Same act, Starkers with cardboard box on your head. Yeah.
I wasn't Starkers then, no, I had Stockington suspenders on and a live ferret and a feather duster down a jockstrap, because after the stark naked and the cardboard boxes, I didn't want to look silly anymore because they was taking photos. So I just had a feather duster down my scrapyard and a ferret down my pants.
Nice and restrained, yeah. Nice and restrained.
So we done okay with that, and then it went on to the finals with people from everywhere. I think it was the venue then at Victoria,
right.
And we came second. And after that, when we came off, this guy from Decca Records came up and said, "Would you like to make a record?" And I said, "Not really." And he said, "Why not?" I said, "Well, because we're shit and no one can play anything. There's no real point in doing it." So he said, "But I'll give you £1,000 up front." So I said, "Okay, we'll start tomorrow," and went on from there.
Right. That was 76, 77, was it?
Early 77, yeah.
Yeah. And that was the Faber brothers, or that was already Splodgenessabounds?
Oh, the Faber brothers was shortly before that.
Right. So next question is the name Splodgenessabounds. How did it come about?
Because if you look in the dictionary, splodge means a mess, and we were a total mess. So if there's a lot of it about, then there's a mess about is Splodgenessabounds. And it's my name, Max, which is a maximum mess. And I've been in some terrible messes, let me tell you.
I believe
Frank knows.
So that was how you got the initial deal from Decca?
Yeah.
£1,000 up front. So what did you do with the £1,000?
Spent it.
In the boozer?
Yeah.
No, on music?
Well, I didn't put it all in the jukebox, did I? There's a lot of money then.
It was a hell of a lot of money, yeah. What, you got a good studio, or?
Oh no, they paid for the studio, that, obviously. And funny enough, the studio I chose to do it in was, before I was in bands, I had a job working for a recording studio as a motorcycle messenger, and then they was going to give me the job as a tape op and all that.
Right.
So basically I just like a run around T-boy. Anyway, when I walked away from that, I said, I want to record my single in that studio. And all the people used to send me up for tea. I was like, we want more tea, go and get that. I don't even drink tea, I hate it.
So the £1,000 went on getting the first single together, is that right?
No, because Decca paid for everything. £1,000 was straight in the skyrocket.
Right. And up until then, you say you were playing drums, you also play bass, trombone. When did you start sort of getting hold of instruments and enjoying yourself on them?
First time I started playing with my instrument and enjoying myself, a teenager, I used to have the old magazines under the bed, didn't we all? Come on.
Yeah. And how about musical instruments?
Oh, sorry, I diverse. No, a drum kit, and when I was about 13, playing with a heavy metal band just at school, when I was allowed at school. And then...
so you say heavy metal, so what kind of Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah.
And then when the punk thing started, I joined a band called Concorde, and we were a bit of a well, I went for a few auditions with bands. I remember going to one audition with The Damned. It was when Rat Scabies left, and I got a call back from that. And there was a local band, this was all in 1 week, and there was a local band called The Mistakes, and I went and auditioned for them, and they offered me the job. And in a pub opposite called The Ball, they used to let bands rehearse on top of that, and I went for an audition there as well, for a band called Susie and the Banshees.
Wow.
And I went and done that, and they said, you should come and join us. And I said, a terrible row that, and I joined The Mistakes. What a mistake that was. Anyway, I'm not bitter.
Not bad for a week's work though.
Nah, right. And no way was I working with Long John Baldry. Had this attitude problem, you know.
And your influences, whilst you were sort of Deep Purple also, but on the punk side, getting the sort of punk side together, Iggy Pop was a big influence of yours.
Iggy Pop, yeah, I mean, the Ig is the Ig. I mean, you know, whether that's considered punk rock or not, in my eyes it is, because music ability is one thing, okay, that's great, but performance value is always great to me, and the Ig, no one does it better. And I mean, there's a great friend of mine who really put me on to saying, well, stick at being a vocalist, was Gary Holton, who had a band called the Heavy Metal Kids. And he was a great mate of mine. We used to share a flat together. And he said, well, just get your band. And the band that I had at the time, which, okay, was a joke in the first place, just said, just get a good rock band together and then just front it. And I said, I can't sing. And he said, well, neither can I, but you can front it. So around this point, I'm going on a bit now to the early 80s, when he'd been given the part in Alvida's Wayne Pet. He'd been recording with some chaps up in Great Yarmouth, which was a guy called the New Heavy Metal Kids. And they'd done some demos, and then he didn't really have the time to carry on with it. So I finished with the lads I've been working with and asked them to come and play with me. And that was the next lineup.
Right. And another sort of band that you're very much into, The Ruts.
The Ruts.
Yeah. What is it about them? What about their attitude?
Well, they're just absolute nutters. We done a show with them, and I'd never seen nothing like it. You know, the way they performed, and also the songwriting of the songs. You know, they had so much structure. And then I began to learn that if you just, you know, I'm not exactly a guitarist, but I can strum a few chords. So I would write the song and go, okay, that's verse, chorus, solo, verse, chorus. But then I listened to a lot of Ruts songs, and then by listening to it, began to learn how to structure songs. And, you know, because they were classics like Babylon's Burning, and it's just not like verse, chorus. Yeah. And I had to use the guitar to play a melody and the rhythm over the top of it.
Right. And also their politics, they're into Rock Against Racism, and is that something, what did punk, when in 1976, when it all started really taking off, what did punk mean to you? Was it an attitude, was it a music, was it a style?
It was an attitude, and you know, there's all the thing about anarchism. I don't know if that works. I mean, I suppose anarchy just means a society without compulsion. I wouldn't presume that would literally work. But, you know, if it means, you know, I do what I want, when I want, and if you don't like it, stuff it. And I still live like that to this day.
Right. Charlie Harper of UK Subs, he's sort of made this distinction between the punk rock movement, which wasn't just one great big thing, the way he saw it. He very much saw it as like, there was one section which were the Pistols, Clash, Damned, who were the kind of the pseudo art school, he called them. And then there were bands like UK Subs, like Sham 69, Jimmy Percy, yourself, that were very much into a far more simpler, working class, everyday kind of punk. Do you agree with that kind of distinction?
Yeah. I suppose so. But I mean, you know, it's just an attitude. But I can see what Charlie's saying there. I mean, you know, when I was like going to punk shows, I would never. It's a very working class thing, and just because I wasn't taken so much seriously then, is because I didn't think it was right to go and do a show, and in them days it was about £2 to get in or something, and sing songs like, oh, I live in a council estate, I'm on the dole, blah, 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 woe is me, and my sister's a one-parent family. It's depressing. But you could have the punk feeling, the punk attitude, and the power of the music, and make people laugh and enjoy it at the same time. So it was an escapism from it, but
right.
Using the music.
Right.
So it's more entertainment
right.
than making political statements.
So is that what Oi is about? Is that what Oi punk is about?
Oi is, that was a later thing. I really understand that one, really.
Right. And pathetic?
Pathetic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it is pathetic, isn't it?
Musically or what?
In general.
Right.
Because actually, I think Oi actually come from Punk La Pathetique.
Right.
Because I was doing an interview once with Sounds with a guy called Gary Bushell, and he said, what sort of music do you do? And I said, well, pathetic punk. And then he used the term Punk La Pathetique. And then we'd done at the Electric Ballroom, a festival called the Punk La Pathetique Festival, which was my lot, and I think Peter and the Test Tube Babies, a few other bands and all that, and it went down really well. It was a great night. But then I think he sort of latched onto it and then decided to call things like that Oi. And Oi means nothing to me.
Right.
No, as a word. It's just something he decided to use.
Right. But on your Razor album, In Search of the Seven Golden Gussets, there is actually a track called Pathetique, yeah?
Mm.
Was that your idea of this music, or it's a mystery to me?
Well, the song was called We're Pathetic.
Right.
And the thing is, if you put your hands up and say, look, we are pathetic, and that's just the way we are, then no one can slag you off. And if people say to me, like, oh, I think your band's shit, I go, yeah, well, it's meant to be like that. And then they haven't got an answer back to that.
Right. When you did that Melody Maker thing, you won that competition, you got the 1,000.
I actually came second.
Oh, right, second, right.
The band who won it, I remember, called Bite the Pillow. They won it. Do you remember them?
No.
I think they joined up with Long John Baldry's Steam Packet. I don't know.
And you got that second place in that. Now that's sort of 77.
Yeah.
And 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps came in 1980. What happened in the middle bit there? What were you doing for those 3 years?
4 years, but I got parole.
Where were you doing it?
I done a bit in the Scrubs and the rest in Norfolk.
Right. What were your impressions of prison life?
It is alright, a bit like being on tour, really.
Did it teach you anything worth learning?
Yeah. I know how to get away with bank robbery now. I ain't gotta say who I done it with, am I? I told you earlier, I'm not a grass. I was a victim of circumstance. In fact, what it was, I knew who did it, but I wouldn't tell anyone who it was.
Right.
It was Long John Baldry. And Dale Winton doing a blag.
Did you do lots of songwriting whilst you were there?
Nah.
Do you have a guitar with you in there? Do you have any music?
No, but I got a job in there doing the bingo on Thursday nights.
So that's true. You were UK Bingo Caller of the Year.
Yeah, in Blackpool I won that. It's because before the band, you got to take this seriously. Before the band I worked in Pontins and used to do the bingo. And because I love that. I just like entertaining people,
Right.
and so my ambition was to build myself up and then become the entertainments manager of a holiday camp. And on my third season, it's working in pontins called Broadreeds in Selsey Bill, and it was at the start of the season, and we're all getting clued up what we've got to do, and the children's chap hadn't turned up or something had gone wrong, and they said, "Do you want to do it, Max?" And I said, "Not really, all these kids." He said, "It's more money, you get 80 quid a week and your own chalet." So I said, "I'll do that then." So, but then on the Saturday morning, you got all these East End kids coming in, and all their families just sod off to the bar and leave them with Uncle Max. And the first job was I had to dress up as a pirate and go to the sweet shop and pretend I'm robbing it, or they'd chase you around, kick the shit out of you, and throw you in the boating lake. And I thought, I love this job. It's great, isn't it?
It happened, did it?
Oh yeah. And the only reason I lost the job was the time when I had my day off, I had the noddy train that used to drive all around the site. I took it out through the gates and went down to this pub and got a lock-in. So I was in the pub till about 3 o'clock in the morning. All the locals that was in there, I was giving them all a lift home on the noddy train around the high street in Selsey. But I couldn't get the noddy train back in through security, so I tried to get it back in round the back through the crazy golf course. But I got wedged in the sand. So anyway, I went back to my chalet and was going to deny any knowledge of it. And in the morning, everyone's looking for the noddy train, but the tide had come in, and all you'd see was Noddy's head above the waves. So I'm still denying any knowledge. Anyway, one of the security blokes had gone to the pub and said, "Oh, that bloke Max who comes in, he was pissed last night, hurling around the car park in the noddy train," and that was the end of that.
Had it not been for that, your life could have taken a very different path.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, and going now to around 1980, and you're back in Civvy Street. The guy from Decca, did you approach him again? Because you'd met him through the Melody Maker thing. How did the DRAM deal that led to 2 packets of crisps and 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps?
That was the chap who said, "Did we want to make a record at the Melody Maker contest?"
Yeah.
So we done that one, and then that done okay, and then we done the second one, Two Little Boys, and then the third one. But at the time, Jonathan King was working there, and he took a liking to me, and because I headbutted him in the toilets of the ship in Waldorf Street, I think that lost the deal.
But initially, it was those 2 records that you made, having made the
I done another one, Cowpunk Medlem.
Right,
but
yeah,
headbutting Jonathan King weren't acceptable at the time, but I reckon it was well deserved. He said, after we'd done Top of the Pops with Two Little Boys, he got in touch with a bloke in Decca he was dealing with and said, "I want to take that boy out for dinner." So I go, "All right." So I turned up, I'd gone with my girlfriend, and we turned up at Decca Records, which is on Albert Embankment, and we got in the car, but he seemed a bit miffed at the time, and we went to this place in Waldorf Street. So, he's talking to me and all that, and I went to the toilet, he come in, he put his hand on my shoulder, he said, "It's a shame you brought your girlfriend, we could have had a right good time." I got, "You cheeky cunt," and invited him. But,
20 years later, he
I'll
gets
still
his
have
just.
headbutted him.
He gets his. He gets his comeuppance.
Bloody will do, if I see him again, dirty bastard.
And if we could just sort of focus on Top of the Pops. Suddenly it's Top of the Pops.
I had a bit of trouble there and all.
Go on. Go on.
The bloke from Decca who took us there, he was scared that we was going to play up or something. So we'd gone to the bar and he let us have 2 pints each and then took us to these dressing rooms. So we stuck in these dressing rooms all day, and rest of the band, like mentioning no names in them days, like drugs were quite acceptable and everyone's doing a bit of this and a bit of that and blah blah blah, and someone had smuggled us in a bottle of vodka and we're drinking that. And all of a sudden the roadies come in, he said, there's going to be terrible trouble here, there's police everywhere down these corridors, they've obviously come to get us. So everyone's going like this and putting things down the sink and down the toilet and all that. So I thought, well, we're all right now. No one had to look up the corridor. Weren't police at all. It was Ian Dury and the Blockheads who was doing the song I Want to Be Straight, and they was all dressed up as policemen. What a waste.
What a waste. But did you enjoy the whole sort of Top of the Pops thing? Was it, you know, coming from a punk background, did you take it as a joke, or
I'll take everything as a joke. The strangest thing I found about it, really, was because I really had no intention of being in a successful band. It just sort of happened all by accident, and we really didn't try that hard. I try a lot harder now, and I put an awful lot of work into it, and we do an awful lot of touring, and we're doing very well. But the Top of the Pops thing that was strange was you'd be told on the Tuesday if you was doing it, and then you had to go into a recording studio and re-record the track because you wasn't allowed to mime to the original one. But of course, when you're doing that, you're not going to get the same sound that spent your weeks doing. So then the A&R man from Decca would take the bloke from the BBC out for a meal and come back and just give him the master tape for the original, which I thought was an absolutely ridiculous waste of time. And then you go on Top of the Pops and then you do it and you mime along with it. And then it didn't really sink into me until at the end when the chap from Decca said, oh, really well done, you know, there'll be 19 people watching that tomorrow. But that didn't sink in. And I watched it indoors with the missus at the time, and then, well, that was okay, it looked pretty nutty. And then just went off to this pub out in Kent, and I couldn't understand why people kept staring at me and was like, what's all this about? It doesn't really sink in, the fact that evening 19 people, particularly in the youngsters and that, have watched you on telly, and I found that quite... It's hard to sink in.
2 Pints Lager was the B-side to Simon Templar. How did the radio stations turn that round and the B-side became the A-side?
Well, it was never meant to be on the record, 2 Pints of Lager. It was doing this Simon Templar song, and the B-side was Michael Booth's Talking Bum. And I was doing the vocals, and the rest of the band had all gone back this place in Chislehurst and left me there. And I got back on this, it was a Friday night, and rushing into the pub, and the rest of the band were all sat in there, and they'd been eating magic mushrooms, which makes people giggle at nothing. And I got rushing in there, the pub's packed solid, and I'm waving a £1 note in the air, shows how long ago it was, trying to get 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps, which is what I wanted. And they're sat in the corner, and they're rolling about, killing themselves. And then the bell's gone and everything, and I didn't get me 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps, so I walked off with the ump. So the next day I got to the studio first as well, and I said to the engineer, can I stick something down while we're waiting for him? He said, okay. So I'd done a drum track, just like, and then a guitar track, and then just a bass on one note, and shouted 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps all over it. When the rest of them turned up and the manager, I said, this is what I've been doing. And they've gone, yeah, what's all that about? I said, well, you found it hilarious last night. Oh, I can't remember last night, don't talk to me, you got an headache. And I played the bloke in the record company, and he's going, pointing out. I said, but I thought maybe we could put that on the B-side as well. And he's going, well, not really, because that'll affect the cut and everything. And I thought, all right, fair enough. Anyway, I went on about it for a while. In the end, they said, well, shut Max up. We'd do like a small cut of it and put it on the end of the B-side. Fine, that was the end of that. And then it got, when the single come out, they'd arranged to have it played on Round Table, and they played Simon Templar, and I can't remember who the guests were on. And someone said, "Oh, it just sounds like a load of young boys trying to be famous or something." And then
about Simon Templar.
Yeah, about Simon Templar. And then Mike Reid said, "Oh, but you haven't heard this one." And he turned it over and he played 2 pints of lager. And he said, "Oh, we'll take it back. That's classic. That's brilliant. That says more about this country than the national anthem." And then it was never off the radio. When I was working in a bar at that point, and I remember the chap and the manager came and Decca Records and saying, "You're selling 17,000 records a day." I said, "Oh, give us some money, I'll jack my job in then."
Right.
Didn't get much of it.
And between that 11 o'clock in the evening when you didn't get served and the next day in the studio, was it like a sudden thing? Hang on, that's a song. Did you think it straight away when you were in the queue?
No, not straight away. It was just when I got to the studio the next day and I'm sat there and no one else has turned up and I couldn't do much. The next thing to be done was some keyboard overdubs. So I'm just sat there and the engineer's there and I'm fiddling about with a guitar. And then I was thinking of the night before. Said, "Well, while we're sat here doing nothing, can I just knock this out?"
Right.
And it took 10 minutes if that, to do the drums, the guitar and the bass and the vocals.
But it wasn't as though you had some sort of blinding inspiration in the pub there, this is a song or anything like that. It was just all dead natural, matter of fact.
No, it's just as a joke.
Yeah. And Two Little Boys was the follow-up. Came out quite soon afterwards, within a couple of months. Was this suddenly were the record company saying, "Hey, we got money here, come on, let's milk it"? Was it that kind of thing?
They said we had to do another single, but after the 2 pints of lager caper went on holiday, and we came back, me and the girlfriend, who was also the backing vocalist in the band at the time. So we all met up in Concorde Studios, which was a Kink studio somewhere in North London. So we all met up to do the follow-up. So we all sat there and the producers there and the engineers and all the gears set up and everything. So I said, "Right, let's start laying it down." Everyone's looking at each other, laying what down? The new single. "What's the new single?" And they all looked at me. And I said, "Well, I had the idea, but the last one I thought you lot had come up with nothing." They go, "I ain't got no ideas." Says, "Anyone got a song?" I go, "Nah." I said, "Well, neither have I." So I gone, "Right, well, let's go down the pub then." So we went down the pub because we didn't have a single or any idea what to do with a single. So we all sat in the pub all day and nothing came up. And then I said, "Maybe it'd be easier if we done a cover version or something." So I gone, "Okay, we'll do that." And we started chatting ideas about, and we decided to do, and don't ask me why, because it's a ridiculous idea. We went in to record a terrible version of that song, "I Did What I Did for Maria." So it only got 3 chords in it.
Tony Orlando.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Bloody horrible, wasn't it? I think Long John Baldry done backing vocals on it, didn't he? So anyway, started knocking that out, and this went on for about 2 days. And then I said, "I bloody hate that one." And they said, "We do," and all. And all this is costing silly amounts of money, because when you're young, you don't realise that it's coming out of your money all the time. So this went on for ages. And we still didn't have anything to come up with. And then I thought, well, I've got to screw my loaf here. And I said, "What about Rolf Harris? He's a bit of a legend." Then we started doing Time in Kangaroo Downsport, but that sounded awful. And then I thought, hang on, got another idea. And I went down to the studio and just started chugging Two Little Boys out. And then the drummer started playing with it, and then realised that if you rocked it up, that one would actually work.
Right.
And so that came about by accident as well.
Right. And then that was yet more Top of the Pops, and you were getting used to it by now, yeah?
Mm.
And then the record company wanted an album out of you, is that right?
Yeah. We done? Yeah, then we done the album, yeah.
In the second half of that year, 1980, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
What did they say for the album? What did they want? Did they give you any direction, or just say, no, just be
said go and get on with it. But the one thing we did have, we had this producer, Mike Robinson, who had produced the first 2 singles. Although it'd be a shambles, it was him that kept it all together. And then we sat in the studio, which was Manfred Mann's studio in the Old Kent Road, the workhouse. And we didn't even have the album written, that's another thing. So he's got some sounds together on the drums and that, and then he said, now we've got to sort the money out, Max. So I said, sort what money out? He said, well, because the advance you've got for the album, you've got to pay me out of that. And I said, well, it's best to speak to my manager about that. He said, I said, well, how much have you got to give you? He said, 10 grand. I said, well, 10 grand's a lot of an advance, isn't it, just to do an album? And he said, yes, but I can ask for that now because I've just had 2 hit records. I said, yeah, but they're both mine. And he said, it don't work like that. I said, to me it don't work like that, neither does this. So I headbutted him.
So he was the headbutt before Jonathan King?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there might have been 1 or 2 in between.
Right.
Apart from Long John Baldry, because he's that tall, I couldn't reach him.
Right, so suddenly, obviously, things were turning very much sort of business. It was a business angle to it all. Again, you know, this is for someone from a punk background, that must have felt pretty...
Yeah, but I was never involved in the business side. I would just roll along with it. And every time, you know, obviously I had rent to pay and things like that, and I would go to the manager of the record company, because no one was getting any wages or any money from the records at all. And every time I went and moaned, they'd go, oh, it's all being sorted out, mate. You know, these things take time. Look, take this for now. And just
this was the record company?
Via the manager and the record company.
Right.
They'd say, well, just take this for now, and put £100 in my hand, and I'd just swallow that, and then I just go, and every time I moaned, they'd just give me a backhander all the time, but I never ever had a check off them.
Right.
The manager disappeared off, like I had 80 grand of my PRS, and just disappeared, and bought an house in Greenwich with it. But therefore, if he bought it with my money, therefore it's my house. So therefore, I think you're allowed to burn your own house down. But I made sure his dog was out when I did it. Not that I was bitter.
And that's what happened?
Mm.
Wow. Raised to the ground, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it weren't raised to the ground. It went lower.
And then after that album, were you pleased with the album? Did you enjoy doing it? Did you enjoy that whole thing?
It's becoming a bit of a chore then.
Yeah, it sounds like
and I didn't really want to do it anymore, because something that was only meant to be a joke and good fun was becoming a bit of a chore. And still this day, there's one thing I can't cope with, is someone saying, you've got to do this. If someone says, you've got to do this, Max, all the people I know, Matt, I tell you, if someone says, you've got to do this, you know that's not going to happen. And when them sort of things started happening, I just really lost interest in it.
Yeah. And it was that single Cowpunk Medlem that was around the Jonathan King incident time?
No, that was after.
Right.
But we done that single, and that was with the new lineup.
Right.
But it was, and that, of course, that was the most expensive single they'd ever put out, because it was a gatefold sleeve, and there's 4 tracks on it, and a free flexi disc, and a free 7-inch piece of brown paper I insisted on, with 20 things printed on it, what to do with your bit of brown paper. Because I thought they was taking a piss out of me, so I thought I'd take the piss out of them. So I'm going, right, I want a flexi disc, I want a 7-inch bit of brown paper in every single. And you go, what, just brown paper? No, with 20 things printed on it, what to do with it. And they're going, well, all right, fair enough. Like what? I said, well, fold it in half, number 1. Number 2, fold it in half and half again. Number 3, roll it up into a ball and throw it at Keith Chegwin. Number 4, ignore it, and just things like that, just to make them spend more money, because I knew I wasn't going to get none of it back.
And it didn't get into the top 20, so suddenly a record company falls out with Act. Is that about it?
Yeah, but I mean, it sold. I mean, it got, in them days, to get into the top 60 was all right, particularly with that style of music, so it sold enough. But it's just a ridiculous amount of money that it cost to make.
Mm-hmm.
And then because I was falling out with them, I wouldn't say it was like it might, they sort of took it that it was my attitude, but just my attitude was, I've done all this for you, and all you want me to do is more and more and more, but you're not giving me anything back. So then I considered they was taking the piss out of me. So I thought, well, in a subtle way, I'll take the piss out of you and make you spend a load of money you're not going to get back.
And then soon after that, you parted company with them. How did the Razor deal come about?
As I knew Robin Greatrex quite well, old friend. He was introduced to me by Gary Holton, going back to him, and he said, come and make an album with us. But the amount of money we had to record the album, we did have some good songs ready for that, but it just had to be done so cheap and cheerful that came out not too good.
In Search of the Seven Golden Gussets. Yeah. How did you get the idea for that title?
In Search of the Seven Golden Gussets?
Yeah.
But there's a book I was reading at the time, I think it was it called Masquerade? And as you read through the book, there is these clues in the book, and somewhere in the country was this hair made of gold buried, and people would look for clues in this book and run around the country trying to dig it up. And eventually someone found it, and it was worth, I think it was something like £1 million, but so many people had bought the book. It was okay, so I thought, right, put all these songs on the album, put these subtle little hints on it. Somewhere is this golden gusset worth 37p, so everyone would go rushing around looking for clues and trying to dig it up.
Right. And you mentioned about the change in the band. What was the reason for that before Cowpunk Bedlam?
Because I was working on the theory that if I wanted to carry on doing what I was doing, I had to use the comedy bit and front it the way that I do. But we couldn't get any more out of what I was doing because the musicians were incompetent, really,
right.
With no disrespect to them, you know, it's very amateurish. So I thought if I had a right shit or hard rock band playing behind it, I would be able to drain it on a bit longer.
Right. And that nicely brings us up to where you are at the moment, which is with some shit-hot musicians.
Oh, mate, it's, you know, and I've said all through this interview, you know, how things have been shit and everything, and actually have, and I admit it. But I honestly believe at the minute I've got the best punk rock band in the world, and I honestly believe that with my hand on my heart.
Right.
The musicians themselves, and they're all such lovely people, and also, but the most important thing with the line-up in a minute is we're all such close mates, and even with touring 6 weeks all the time, obviously you get tired and emotional. There's never a cross word. The odd sulk, but never a cross word.
Well, I've been reading around the new lineup, and I'd like to put a couple of true or false questions to you, Max, if I may, about your colleagues in the band.
Sure.
Sham 69's Matt Sargent. Matt has 3 Jacobs.
He has, yeah.
True.
It's definitely true. Definitely true. He's like, we call him Dr. Yes. It's like Dr. No in the James Bond film had 3 nipples. He's got 3 Jacobs. He went for a test to the doctor. Doctor's done that, cough. Doctor's still got a black eye. He's got 3 Jacobs.
So true.
100% true.
Then your guitarist Johnny Chunders once crashed a car into a performing group of Morris dancers, seriously injuring 4 and paralysing the one with a feather duster.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, that was in Hastings, on the seafront in Hastings, at the bonfire party they have there. And they say the feather duster, you know, the one who skips along at the front doing that for no reason.
Did he do it on purpose?
Oh no, not on purpose, no.
Just an accident. These things happen.
Well, it might have been on purpose, but I told you I'm not a grass.
And we were talking about this before. Yourself, you won a nationwide Bingo Caller of the Year award in '76.
Yeah, in Blackpool.
Yeah, and just going on from that, you the performer, you the actor, I understand that, you know, in the last few years you've been trying to also boost your acting career.
Yeah. Well,
Tell us about that.
Well, they've actually at last granted me my equity card, so, you know, looking for work, but since I've had the equity card, I haven't had time because we've been doing so much touring. But in the past, I've done quite a bit of fringe theatre. I've done a show called Camberwell Beauty. I've done that for a month or so. One called His Master's Voice, and what was the other one I've done? Pump Stars and Dinettes. I got sacked from that. His Master's Voice. Once a Catholic, that was the other one, so I've done those. And also I was, for 1 week, a tweenie.
My goodness. Enjoyable?
Hard work, because in like felt things, it's bloody hot inside them. It's only because the chap that was doing it, he got offered a job, and it was during the school holidays. They was filming 3 or 4 shows a day, 5 days a week. And they offered it to an actor friend of mine, but, well, he just wouldn't do it, but he said, I know someone mad enough. And next time I got a phone call, said, do you want to be a tweenie? I said, yeah, all right.
And this is something, the acting thing you want to focus on in the future as well, yeah?
Well, no, I'll be a tweenie forever.
No, I said the acting thing.
Oh.
You don't want to be typecast, do you?
Well, no, I don't want to be typecast. No, we're going to do I'll do a Shakespearean tweenie. And as I say to you, hey ho, are you ready to go? Let's go and play with the tweenies. That's what you have to do.
Well, with that glimpse of classic Shakespearean acting, Max Splodge, thanks ever so much. We heard some fireworks outside there because it's bonfire night. There have been a few in here as well. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
And you.
Cheers.